time you learn the truth of who these Flesh and Blood creators truly are. I just feel that it's important that you all know the truth. In this video, I will do multiple deep dives, discussing countless unbelievable acts that these content creators partook in, and the effects they've had on me. Every single content creator and person I've interacted with in Flesh and Blood is not only genuine and a pleasure to be around, but I truly feel blessed to know and interact with all of them. The day this video releases is going to be Thanksgiving here in the US. I figured what a better day than today to tell you about some of my favorite moments of Flesh and Blood and the amazing people in and around the game that I am thankful for. Some of the first people I started watching on YouTube were DM Armada and Red Zone Rogue. These two incredible people will be mentioned multiple times throughout this video. The most important video of theirs I watched featured a guy named Jim from FabTCG Cards, who will also be mentioned quite a bit. That video is the reason many of my friendships and greatest core memories exist. So it all starts at the Calling Orlando, which I later find out is the first US Nats. I am sitting down across from my opponent, who I find out ends up being Pheno Black. And he's like, he talks to the guy next to me and he's like, "Hey, that's a sweet Prismite." And I'm like, "Wait a second, you're the guy that was in that video with Red Zone Rogue and DM Armada." We get to talking, he introduces me to Cal and Steven. All three of them sign a Red Zone Rogue sleeve, and that is currently in a binder with, Steven, Cal, and Jim's signatures. Because of this interaction, I talked to Jim about wanting to get started on a website and shipping cards, and so I get his information. He's super helpful and kind. This leads to the first episode of Fab Fam, Flesh and Blood, Friends and Memories, where Jim joins us and we talk about how he was one of the first people to have an online card store, and our relationship just continues to get better and better throughout the story. Pro Tour New Jersey, we get there. We're like, man, we might have made a mistake. We didn't have a great first day. At the end of the day, we meet two guys, find out they're from Florida. That interaction changes our entire weekend. We get to meet James White for the first time in our hotel. Rudy was also staying at his hotel, and we got to spend a lot of time with him, Dan, and Edwin. And because of that interaction and speaking with them, we're walking through the hall and they call us over, and Saint, who I didn't know at the time, is opening Alpha. But because of our engagement with those three, they call us over, and Amy and I both get to open up our first ever packs of Alpha, which is insane because we're doing it right across from James White. And because we were still there hanging out afterwards, James White actually started doing his signature signing right next to us, so I just snuck in line and got some stuff signed and told him how much I love the game. This is also the first time I got to interact with MinMax. They had a bunch of pre-constructed commoner decks, and yeah, we'll talk about MinMax later. But the highlight of the weekend, I get to go to dinner as this tiny nobody content creator with Jim from FabTCG Cards, Kel from Red Zone Rogue, Steven from DM Armada, Alan Hale, an LSS employee, Ian from Right Time Gaming, who is now again an LSS employee. If that wasn't a cool enough feeling as a tiny little content creator sitting next to these megastars at the time, I get to go back to the hotel and play my first ever draft with Steven and Ian and Jim and Evan, and I get absolutely fed because nobody drafts a single Mechanologist card and I take them all. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was such a blast and a core memory that I will never forget. Next is US Nats in Charlotte, and we get to meet Himmel for one of the first times, and we do a little deal, including an Icelander you're going to hear about later. The event's winding down. It's been an okay time, but I've had a bad birthday earlier in the month. I'm kind of feeling bummed because the event's almost over. And then Steven, DM Armada, again, this megastar compared to me, comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you want to play Sealed?" And he sits down and we play friggin' Welcome to Race Sealed, just four of us, and then he gives me one of his playmats. Oh, but this core memory gets me choked up just thinking about it. So I'm super bummed. I've asked if anybody wants to go to dinner and everybody has plans. So it's just Amy and I, and we head to this restaurant. And, I'm so bummed. I'm not even putting two and two together. I sit at this table and I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? They put down way too many silverware. And now I'm already bummed, and now we're at the wrong table. This is just awful. And in walks Steven, Jim, and then Chris and Ian from Fab Unsealed. And Amy had orchestrated this whole surprise birthday dinner with people I hardly knew that took time to spend that evening with me. I wasn't in a great place, and those people will never understand how much that meant to me. On to a brighter note, next in the list is I get a message from Chris Bewley, who has just told me that they're going to give us our first spoiler. That is a moment that I will never forget, and on top of that, Chris has become a great friend who I am super, super proud to know. It's fall brawl time. I'm going to my first speakeasy. I'm literally just going to connect with people, to network, to kind of tell people about the channel and stuff. I get to meet Alex Norval. I get to meet Anthony and Theo, who end up calling me dad, because we all go out one night, and you know, one of the guys we're with gets super drunk. We're like, oh, we're gonna go back out and meet up with some people. Well, we get back to the house, and the guy falls through the front door, and I'm like, all right, kids, I think we should call it a night. So they called me dad ever since then, and you'll hear more about Anthony and Theo in a little bit. Then comes California. I am flying to California because of cardboard. I get to meet so many people, interact with so many people, but my core group that weekend is Ian, Steven, Kel, and I finally got to meet Ads. We had so much fun together, but there are two ridiculous highlights from that weekend. One involving Peter from MinMax Games and Himmel. Peter randomly walks up, hands me an alpha pack. I open the alpha pack, there's a freaking Easter egg in it. I get that Easter egg graded along with that card that Himmel had traded me in Charlotte, and I get those graded, get some ridiculous grades. I end up shouting and causing a scene at Worlds, telling Peter how much I love him, and you know, thanking Himmel for those grades. I'll have that video linked below. You got to see it. It's phenomenal. But the other one even tops that. Again, Steven and Ian and Kel are there, and I get to sit down in their hotel once again at the end of an amazing trip, and I get to play Yorick UPF. If you guys have never tried Yorick UPF, it is such an incredible time, especially when you get to do it with amazing people like them. Next, I randomly get sent this picture of my logo by Andy Portillo, and he's like, hey, I need to send you something, and the dude sends us frickin' sweaters for free. It's incredible. I become really close friends with him, and you'll hear more about him later as well. It's Pro Tour Baltimore, and because we're going to Baltimore, I get to stay with Jim, and I get to see DC for the first time ever, which is incredible. This is also where I get to meet Andy for the first time, give him a hug. I get to meet Joe Sapp for the first time, who we'll talk about later. I get to make Steve Argyle draw a goblin. James White now knows us on a first name basis and gives me a hug. I make a video asking people what their favorite thing about Flesh and Blood is, and it does really well. But the highlight of the weekend, John Smith, judge, comes up to me, he's like, hey, I got something, you gotta record it. That short now has over 78,000 views at the time of the recording. It just absolutely blew up. It's him playing the Rudy deck, and so many people have seen that video. It's so incredible, and John and I, you know, have done a few things together since then, and you know, John is just such a great guy, and I am super proud to call him my friend as well. Next, it's the Battle Hardened Pittsburgh, the first Battle Hardened I ever compete in. It's sealed, I think it's Outsiders. But I get to hang out with a bunch of Yinzers, and again, remember Theo. Theo, all the way back from the Brawl, he ends up staying with me, and we have a great weekend together. So because I went to this Pittsburgh Brawl, I now get to stay with Theo in another event. But some of the highlights of that event, we're at the Speakeasy, and I get to meet the guys from WNY, Jordan, Jimmy, and Matthew. Just great guys you'll hear more about later on as well. Kind of like the running theme of the story. At the end of that event, I find myself in a place that I don't feel like I belong, with people that I feel like are way out of my league. But I'm just like, I see a bunch of guys standing around. I'm like, hey, would you mind if we go to dinner with you? Brody, Michael, Yanji, Cody, and Dave. All incredible players that had just crushed the Battle Hardened that day. I am now going to dinner with them and Theo, and listening to them talk about the game and how nice they were to us and how they just let us tag along is another moment that I will never forget. And ever since that day, Brody has sent me a birthday message on Facebook every year, which really means a lot. US Nats in Vegas. I am now going to Vegas for the first time. because of cardboard again. This time I'm now staying with Anthony all the way back from the Fall Brawl. If it wasn't for him offering us a place to stay for free, we never would have been able to go. So huge shout out to Anthony. Love him and Theo. They are my sons. And yeah. For that event, Andy Portillo has created these amazing jerseys. A bunch of us go out to dinner. John Smith, Max Ferocity and her husband, Anthony, Theo. We all go out to dinner together, and it's just an amazing time. Amy buys me Marvel Viscerai, who you've seen in the League That Means Nothing quite a bit. That was incredible. And then there's Saint. He's always been a great guy to me, and you know, he let us open our first ever box of Arcane Rising. It was truly incredible. And then he invited us to dinner with the Runaways. And again, I'm just surrounded with all these people who I have no business being around. They're just incredible people. And, you know, I get to have a great chat with Thino afterwards, and you'll hear more about him in a little bit. It's the Realm 20K. Somehow I have qualified for this $20,000 tournament, and it's the first time I'm ever playing in paper. Huge shout out to Ian from Right Time Games again, and he helps me build a Reinhardt deck. I do terrible, but I have an absolutely wonderful time. Then huge shout out to Max Ferocity and her husband Phil. They actually asked me to be a part of their Team Sealed event, which was super cool. Another moment I won't forget. It was so much fun. But the highlight of that, again, this is an event that I didn't think I would be able to go to, but the relationship that I built back at the last Realm event with the WNY guys. I ended up staying with Jimmy, Jordan, Matthew, and a bunch of other people, you know, for a really good price, and just have a great weekend, you know, going out, eating with them, spending time with them. It was really special. Now, I've been to California and I've been to Vegas, two places I never thought I'd go because of cardboard. Now I'm 23 hours of total travel time, and I'm in New Zealand, one of the most beautiful places in the world, all because of cardboard. And we're gonna have to shout out Ian and Alan Hale, because those guys gave us a place to stay. We stayed with Ian on the North Island, and he showed us around. He was super kind. And then we stayed with him and Alan in an Airbnb on the South Island, and those guys are just incredible, and I'm so glad to call them my friends. Really cool memory. On the last day, Alan and I, we combine our tickets and we get a bunch of packs, and I end up opening a Marvel Kasai. I get my sweet goblin tattoo, which is Maori and has a bunch of meaning. I win entry to and then wipe the floor with everybody in a Welcome to Wraith Alpha draft. Lynette sets up this big dinner, and I get to eat dinner with a bunch of people and locals, and that was a great time. Thank you so much, Lynette. Ashley Helam, an incredible artist, a guy that's checked up on me recently to, you know, make sure I'm doing all right. And he's responsible for making a joke about visiting New Zealand, creating a card that has art on it that says, "Come to New Zealand, get an altar." He makes this incredible altar to encapsulate the entire trip, meeting these people halfway around the world and creating bonds with them is just so special. So huge shout out to Ashley and Ian and Alan and everybody over there in New Zealand. But sorry guys, the moment that tops all of that was getting to hang out with James White and do an interview with him for the channel. It blows my mind that I got to do that. Back to reality. We're back in the US. This time we're going to Minnesota. Oh man, Minnesota. Minnesota was incredible. I wasn't doing well mentally. I was not in a great place, and I had some people really step up, and you know, I had a great time because of them. Zen State Fab, he had casted one of my matches in the League That Means Nothing, and then we hung out for part of the weekend, getting to know each other, and you know, just an incredible guy. We've gone on to do videos and chat. We have another video we need to do, so if you're listening, we need to get that video done, sir. I get to meet Adam Cook in the flesh for the first time. Another super awesome guy, Chance and Daggers. Go check him out if you haven't. He's the reason I'm playing Viscerai to the level that I am. And, you know, he was one of those guys that, thanks to John Smith, I met him. And, you know, he, out of the kindness of his heart, he was like, hey, I will help you get better at Viscerai. And, you know, we've just built a really great relationship as well. Again, all those events from the past, you know, connects me with Anna and the West Virginia crew. They gave me a place to stay, which makes this possible. I got to share accommodations with them. But the highlight of my weekend for sure was Andy and the guys from the Feisty Locals You know, they made sure that I had someone to hang out with and go to dinner with, and I got to spend a lot of time with them, so I'm grateful for those guys. And Chris Sayers and Calvin from Fab Unsealed. Just great guys that I got to spend a lot of time with. I've probably missed a few stories with Chris, but Chris has been an incredible guy. He invited me up to his hotel in California I forgot about. He's just been a really solid dude, and he was the only one that really knew what was going on with me in Minnesota, and he just really took care of me and looked out for me. Then we got to go to the Mall of America on our last day together, and we got to open a crap ton of packs that morning in his hotel, which was a lot of fun and just a great memory. All right, back to Fino. So Fino's just a guy that I've always had great conversations with, and leading up to the world premiere of Rosetta, I'm watching some of his live streams with my kids, and I'm messaging him on stream, and he's responding to my kids. My kids are freaking out, like, how is he talking to us? How does he know? And it was super cool. Which leads us to the world premiere Rosetta. I got to FaceTime the kids and show them that I was there with the guy from YouTube, and you know, I'm really grateful for Fino. Again, going through a tough time in my life, he was there and made me and my kids laugh. But at the world premiere was that I didn't play nearly as much as I thought I would. Huge shout out to Peter from MinMax Games and Levi Roush. They went shorthanded, and they didn't ask me to, but I ended up just working their booth. I learned how to work all their systems, and basically I worked for cards. I would see cards get traded in, I'd set them off to the side, and they gave me really great deals on them. So I ended up playing vendor all weekend, and I got to eat dinner with them one night. And you know, Peter is such a great guy. Levi's such a great guy. I'm truly grateful for them as well. I also got to pull the first ever cold foil Fabled at that event, which was incredible. But the best part of that weekend was twofold. My birthday was that Monday, and so Sunday night, the guys from WNY that I got to stay with again because of my past connections, Matthew and Jimmy, they took me out to dinner on Sunday night, and we got to have a great time together. And then Monday, I got to go out to a birthday lunch. Jesse, Calvin, and Chris Sayers, all from Fab Unsealed, took me out, you know, and I shared with them what I was going through, and they were all there for me. And you know, we just had a great lunch, great time, just spending time together. Before we went out to lunch, we got to open a crap ton of packs again, which was a blast. Man, I've been through a lot over this last year, but I just want to say I'm so grateful for Flesh and Blood and everyone in this community. You guys are truly incredible and mean so much to me. There's so many more of you that I didn't get to name or mention, but I just kind of wanted to share with you how great these people in this community are and how much you all mean to me. I love you all. Until next time, guys. Peace.
Whoops. While editing this, I just wanted to quickly also shout out James White and everybody at Flesh and Blood. You know, without you guys, none of these stories happen. None of these amazing people are in my life, so thank you. Speaking of while editing and forgetting people, I just wanted to do a quick shout out to Joe Sapp. Again, I wasn't really in a great frame of mind that weekend at World Premiere Rosetta, and he came over and he owed me a hug from Twitter, and he really helped brighten that weekend as well, so thank you, Joe.